DeSoto County, Mississippi is in a unique position in time and geography. Regional growth catalysts are rapidly influencing the character and identity of the county. Projects like the I-69, I-269 International Trade Corridor and the migration of people from Shelby County and Memphis into DeSoto County have created significant growth pressures. This video will provide an overview of the conditions and the findings of a potential growth pattern, and how well that scenario achieved the guiding principle benchmarks. With growth, there is much to be excited about, and much to look forward to. New jobs, neighborhoods, schools, parks, and new opportunities. However, not all of the changes that come with growth are positive, and not all growth guarantees prosperity. In the first part of the process, the steering committee established a set of guiding principles against which we can benchmark the stewardship plan's effectiveness. These guiding principles include direction for leadership for the 21st century economy, creating a recognizable brand, supporting a balanced community, making great places, providing housing choices, supporting transportation choices, fiscal responsibility, collaboration, flexibility and adaptability. Without a strategy to address the impacts of growth in the coming decades, the cost of providing services and infrastructure can be greater than the revenue generated, creating increased tax burdens on residents and businesses and potential reduced levels of service. Quality of life can suffer as traffic congestion increases, open space is lost, and housing costs increase. The exact character and elements that make the county attractive to growth can become nostalgic as they're lost in unmanaged growth. Thus, the need for this stewardship plan is to position the county to maximize the benefits of growth while minimizing potential negative impacts. The study area begins at I-69 and US 61 in the western part of DeSoto County, extends to I-55, and continues eastward along the unbuilt alignment of I-269 to the Marshall County line. It includes land roughly 2 miles north and south of the I-69, I-269 corridor and encompasses over 111,000 acres, or approximately 180 square miles. As an early step in the planning process, the consultant team evaluated existing land use and development patterns. Understanding these current on-the-ground conditions is integral to planning for the future, and the analysis highlights a number of important issues to consider. The majority of the study corridor is either agricultural, undeveloped, or larger lot residential development, with lots between 2 and 10 acres being most common. 58% of the land in the study area is currently being used for agriculture or is undeveloped. The majority of the higher density residential and commercial uses are located in Hernando. This chart shows us another way of looking at the distribution of land uses throughout the corridor. The vast majority of the study area is in large agriculture lots or undeveloped. The second largest land use category is farmsteads, which are characterized by sparse residential development with one dwelling unit on 10 or more acres of land. Single-family homes on lots between 1 and 10 acres in size make up about 13% of the land area. While it is clear that although agricultural and undeveloped land are the dominant land uses, low-density residential development has become a substantial part of the county's land use pattern. Our analysis of existing residential growth in DeSoto County showed that most of the growth over the last few decades has occurred in the form of single-family subdivisions, spurred by consumers seeking larger homes, lower prices, and a better quality of life. The trend is to build single-family homes on 1/2 to 2 acre lots. As more homes are built at these densities, the character of the corridor will change, and the development pattern will have important implications for transportation options, housing affordability, and a range of other infrastructure and services issues. As we think about how the study area could develop in the future, it's important to note those places where water, wetlands, and steep slopes of greater than 15% present challenges to development. In addition to constrained land, existing development, as shown on this map in yellow and orange, further limits which land is easily developable to accommodate future demand for new homes and businesses. Taking into account these constraints, the approximately 80,000 acres left in gray are potentially available for new development in the future. Given the abundant supply of developable land, the county has the opportunity to both accommodate growth and development and to preserve the natural resources, farms, and open space valued by county residents. Projections from the University of Mississippi indicate that DeSoto County will be a preferred destination for regional growth for several decades in the future and could grow to 219,000 by 2020. That is an increase of nearly 58,000 people. With this kind of population growth, the county could experience a demand for nearly 24,000 new homes by 2020 and 50,000 by 2030. It is nearly impossible to stop growth, especially with a major new highway corridor, so the choices will center on how the county will both accommodate growth responsibility and maintain quality of life. As one of the fastest-growing communities in the entire United States, DeSoto County is anticipated to experience high demand for new housing and jobs through at least the next several decades. So let's imagine the impact of 50,000 additional homes within the study area. For example, if 50,000 new homes were built at the current average lot size, which is 1.6 acres, then approximately 80,000 acres of vacant developable land would be consumed, almost the entire study area. The current average for areas outside of towns and cities is 2.8 acres. Under that trend, the demand for new units would take up almost twice the land as the 1.6-acre average, and would also be far greater than the size of the corridor. But if we consider building the new residential homes on smaller-sized lots, such as 1/2 or 1/4 acre lots, then only 25,000 or 12,500 acres of land would be consumed for the same number of new homes. However, there are trade-offs involved in smaller lot sizes. The important point is that small shifts in the average lot size can have dramatic differences in land use. Benefits include lower utility costs, fewer miles of road to maintain, more homes in a comfortable and walkable proximity to schools and other services. Economic development and job creation have been targeted as priorities for the stewardship of the corridor. However, the development trend of low-density residential development has created obstacles, such as a lack of utility services, communications technology, and shovel-ready sites with prime access to transportation. Planning for balance of uses can help in the long run to reduce the number of residents leaving daily for work and services, which means less time spent by residents on travel, lower impacts on the transportation network, and a better balance of public revenue and public costs associated with growth. So, to test a potential growth pattern that might meet some of the guiding principles, the team created a model to test a set of growth assumptions. Place types are the building blocks of the growth scenario, and they represent a snapshot example of a typical pattern of development within the study area. This chart indicates how place types perform in terms of their unique impacts on infrastructure, population, and demand for services. This information can inform decisions about growth and development, land preservation, resource protection, transportation service, and community facilities and services. 14 distinct place types were defined for the study. Some of the place types, such as rural, residential, and suburban neighborhood, are intended to replicate existing zone designations in the county. The remaining place types represent new development patterns that are intended to convey a desirable community. Their 3 working dot maps were synthesized into a growth scenario map generated by the Land Use Model software. The software allocated place types to estimate land development potential and how that potential translates into the location of households and jobs, infrastructure impacts, etc., assuming current availability of existing and planned infrastructure and services. A number of general strategies emerged within the growth scenario. For instance, employment and mixed-use centers were focused at interchanges, particularly at US 78, I-69, and west of US 61. Industrial and special districts are also envisioned at the major interchanges and at the US 51 and US 78 gateways. Less intense types of development, such as traditional neighborhoods and villages, are envisioned further out from the commercial and employment centers. The vision for the growth scenario also included the protection of natural areas, such as the wetlands and river corridors. Conservation subdivisions, in which houses are clustered together in a rural or natural setting to maximize undisturbed open space, would be designed around these sensitive natural areas. Based on this growth scenario, there are a number of particularly important findings. These tables show us that the proposed growth scenario can support people in a variety of lifestyles. The growth scenario is comprised mostly of rural and suburban place types, and thus continues the trend of a relatively rural to suburban model of growth in the corridor. The amount of urban land that is allocated is very small. Although the growth scenario has an average residential density of 2.67 homes per acre, higher density than current trends, it is still representative of what one would expect to see in a well-planned suburban single-family neighborhood. The growth scenario includes 5,000 acres of new residential development, a 14% increase in the land area from the 36,000 acres of residential land that exists in the corridor today, and would add about 2,000 acres of non-residential development, almost doubling the amount of land dedicated to non-residential uses. This non-residential land could generate a total of 14,000 new jobs. Over 80% of these would be retail service office sector employment. Only 9%, or 1,200 jobs, would be in the industrial sector under this scenario. Finally, the jobs-to-housing ratio in the corridor today is very low, at 0.16. Creation of jobs is important to the quality of life in many ways, one because good jobs lead to a good quality of life, but also because the burden of funding services and infrastructure falls to the residential tax base, which more often than not demands more services than they can pay for through generated revenue. It also means that people who live in the corridor will have to leave the corridor to find work. DeSoto County is known as a bedroom community, a fact supported by the low jobs-to-housing ratio of 1.19 in 2008. As the next step in the planning process, the steering committee will need to make recommendations on strategies and policies that will help the county achieve the guiding principles. As the scenario shows us, there are still some things that will require attention in order to achieve responsible stewardship for the corridor and achieve the guiding principles. Economic development and job creation are at the root of the future well-being of the county and the corridor as it grows. The county will need to establish a set of actions, initiatives, and policies that will support the guiding principle of creating a 21st century economy in the county, one that meets the needs of the community and supports a high quality of life. Coordinating the expansion of infrastructure and facilities will help prioritize areas for the most beneficial return and reduce the costs of building and maintaining infrastructure. The county will need to articulate policies related to community character and land use so that the future development in the corridor provides rural, suburban, and urban housing options organized in development forms and patterns that support the needs of changing demographics and maintain a high quality of life for future residents and business in a physically supportable form. And finally, and possibly most importantly, policies related to public health, safety, and welfare should be included to ensure that the stewardship plan addresses not only the physical and geographic aspects of the future, but also the well-being of the people who live in the community.